You may have heard of the MAGA Diet, yes, as in Make America Great Again.
This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. Oh.
But what exactly is it, and more importantly, is it actually healthy? Stick around until the end because as a registered nutritionist, I'll be breaking down the science behind this politically charged dietary trend, separating facts from fiction and hype from health. So what exactly is the MAGA diet? Well, it isn't a formally defined nutrition plan. Instead, it's a cultural and political movement rooted in traditional eating patterns, skepticism of modern food processing, and a return to so-called ancestral nutrition. It's based on no seed oils, carnivore eating, and no ultra-processed foods. Let's first look at the seed oil controversy. Canola, soybean, sunflower, these innocent kitchen staples are public enemy number one in the MAGA diet. Influencers and even political figures like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has pledged to make America healthy again, have
the real overhaul is improving the health of the entire nation to make America healthy again.
Called them poison. Some restaurants have even switched back to beef tallow for frying, which is rendered beef fat. Basically, it's fat that's been slowly cooked down and purified until it becomes a smooth, creamy, butter-like substance. But is there a need to completely avoid seed oils? Let's dive into this a little more because it's definitely a hot topic. Influencers and figures like RF Kennedy Jr. argue seed oils are harmful due to their omega-6 content and industrial processing methods. Critics claim these oils drive chronic diseases and obesity, and that excessive omega-6 fatty acids abundant in seed oils promote inflammation. But what does science actually say? Well, population studies actually show replacing animal fats with seed oils reduces mortality and LDL cholesterol, often labeled the bad cholesterol. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this terminology because LDL cholesterol itself isn't inherently bad. In fact, LDL plays an important role in the body, such as transporting cholesterol to cells where it's needed for functions like hormone production and cell membrane integrity. However, when LDL cholesterol levels become too high, it can lead to a buildup of plaque in the arteries, increasing the risk of atherosclerosis, heart attacks, and strokes. So it's not that LDL cholesterol is bad by nature, it's the excessive levels over time that pose serious health risks. As for omega-6 fatty acids, reviews have found no solid evidence that they directly cause inflammation. In fact, some studies associate higher omega-6 intake with lower levels of inflammatory markers, suggesting they may actually be beneficial. So should you replace seed oils with beef tallow? In short, it's probably not a good idea. Beef tallow contains more saturated fat than seed or vegetable oil, which is linked to higher LDL cholesterol and cardiovascular disease. 1 tablespoon of beef tallow contains 6 grams of saturated fat, whereas 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil contains only 2 grams of saturated fat. The shift from tallow to seed oils in the 20th century contributed to declining heart disease rates. Dr. Sarah Berry, who is a professor in the Department of Nutritional Sciences at King's College London, says this well in the diary of a CEO. Seed oils aren't the enemy. Context matters.
There's absolutely no evidence that is credible evidence when interpreted in the correct way to show seed oils are harmful. So for example, for seed oils, there's meta-analysis, for example, of about 42 randomized controlled trials where they compare seed oils to other fats, showing consistently that there is no harmful benefit, that actually there's a reduction in cardiovascular disease.
So it's not that seed oils themselves are inherently unsafe. It's the ultra-processed foods they're often found in, packed with excess fat, salt and sugar, that we really need to watch out for. In summary, while seed oils are imperfect, labeling them poison ignores decades of research supporting their role in heart-healthy diets when used appropriately. Replacing them with saturated fats risks reversing public health gains. Next up on the MAGA diet is no ultra-processed foods. Now here's where the MAGA diet might have a point. Ultra-processed foods are linked to higher rates of obesity, heart disease, and early mortality. But what exactly are ultra-processed foods? The term ultra-processed refers to the level of processing these foods undergo, not necessarily their healthiness. There are 4 groups of processing according to the NOVA system. Number 1 is unprocessed or minimally processed, so things like whole fruits, vegetables, and grains. Number 2 is processed culinary ingredients, so oils, sugars, and salts. Number 3 is processed foods, so canned veggies, cheese, and bread. And number 4 is ultra-processed foods, so things like the snack aisle in a nutshell. Though observational studies link high ultra-processed food intake to various health conditions, they can't definitively prove causation. One reason these foods may be harmful is their typical nutritional profile, which is high in saturated fat, salt, and sugar, but low in fiber and essential nutrients. However, not all ultra-processed foods are equally unhealthy. Some, like whole grain cereals or fortified breads, can support a healthy diet. Now, there is some criticism with the NOVA system. For example, assigning foods to categories can be inconsistent. For example, plain yogurt sometimes classified ambiguously across group 1, 3, or 4, raising concerns about the system's reliability for research. Ultimately, the message is one of balance and informed choices, not total avoidance, focusing on reducing harmful ultra-processed foods while recognizing the role of beneficial ones in a sustainable and heart-healthy diet. Overall, eating fewer sugary snacks and more whole foods, that's a win, regardless of your political views. I go into a lot more detail in my video about the truth about ultra-processed foods. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. The final pillar on the MAGA diet is carnivore-style eating. Think steak, eggs, butter, but hold the veggies. Advocates say it boosts energy and helps the autoimmune conditions. Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson have helped popularize this trend.
I just did it to try to find out what it's like to only eat meat.
Right.
When you have no carbohydrates, one of the things that's most amazing is that there's no crashing. You would eat and you don't feel any different after you ate other than the fact that you don't feel hungry.
Long time.
So how long have you been doing carnivore?
Oh, 7 years.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Do you still miss food?
Of course. Yeah, it's very restricted.
But here's a concern. Completely removing plant-based foods cuts out fiber, key vitamins like vitamin C and folates and antioxidants. Over time, that can increase your risk of constipation, fatigue, and chronic disease. While some individuals report short-term benefits, the lack of fiber, essential nutrients, and long-term safety data makes a carnivore diet risky. Now, you might be thinking that the MAGA diet sounds quite similar to the keto diet. Both love fat, shun carbs, and loathe processed foods. Well, let's compare them. So they may look similar on the surface, but they do differ in some key ways. Let's first look at the similarities. Both prioritize high-fat, low-carb eating, both reject ultra-processed foods, both emphasize weight loss and anti-inflammatory goals, but there are definitely some differences. So the MAGA diet focuses on political identity and ancestral eating, whereas the keto diet is a metabolic state ketosis weight loss focus. The fat source for the MAGA diet are animal fats, so like beef tallow, whereas on the keto diet there is a variety, so you can get fat sources from avocado, olive oil, nuts, and dairy. When it comes to carbs, well, on the MAGA diet this is loosely defined. It just says avoid processed carbs. Whereas on the keto diet there is a strict less than 50 grams per day to maintain ketosis. Now let's look at the scientific basis of the diets. Well, the MAGA diet lacks robust evidence, whereas the keto diet was actually developed for epilepsy. And what's the long-term viability of both diets? Well, the MAGA diet is politically driven and tested for longevity, whereas the keto diet is challenging but clinically studied. In short, the keto diet is a structured metabolic regime with clinical use and risks. The MAGA diet is more of a cultural statement with unproven health claims. Now, I'm more for diets like the Mediterranean diet plan, which are better backed by science and offer more sustainable, heart-healthy eating plans. Make no mistake that this diet is deeply political. Supporters frame it as a resistance to institutional science and government dietary guidelines. Critics say it's more about ideology than evidence. And that's where it gets tricky. Good nutrition should be rooted in science, not slogans. So, should you try the MAGA diet? Let's weigh the pros and cons. Firstly, the pros are that it is a reduced intake of ultra-processed foods, simpler eating guidelines, and potential short-term weight loss. The cons are that it has a risk of nutritional deficiencies, increased saturated fat intake, hard to sustain long-term, and there is weak scientific backing. Yes, cutting back on junk food is smart, but replacing it with all animal diets and beef fats, that's a harder sell, especially when the science just isn't there. The MAGA Diet taps into nostalgia for simpler times, but our understanding of nutrition has evolved. Rather than swing to extremes, aim for balance, lean proteins, whole grains, healthy fats, and plenty of fruits and vegetables. Politics aside, your plate should reflect what your body needs, not just what makes headlines. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more science-backed nutrition content, and let me know in the comments what's your take on the MAGA Diet. Catch you on the next one.